considerable number of atomic weapons. Nevertheless, since world peace is as important as the nation's security, several conversions are unavoidable. Thus, the United States of America would like to introduce a few systematic alterations for the peaceful use of atomic energy. First and foremost, the possession of nuclear weapons should be restricted, not only for national security, but also for economic advantages. Harnessing atomic energy for military purposes are inevitable. Furthermore, according to the statistics for the world nuclear weapons stockpile, 9 countries in the world possess about 14,000 weapons. Russia and USA are holding overwhelming number of weapons especially, which is about 6,500. Considering the data, due to the immense utilizations in military purposes, these weapons cannot be eliminated in the short term with an unsophisticated solution. Therefore, international organizations such as IAEA should impose a criterion of the number of nuclear weapons a nation could possess. The number of atomic weapons should be gradually reduced in order to maintain the minimum consequential. In this process, mutual exchanges of opinions between nations are required to find out a point of compromise. The nuclear verification system should also be applied. For the practical decline of the weapon position, observing on an application of atomic energy and examining whether it is an armament or not are necessary. The U.S. is also able to provide technological support if the monitoring system is added within the national intelligence. Furthermore, administration on power plants are required to prevent constant accidents. The regulations like those for nuclear power plants in NRC should be implemented worldwide. To be specific, these regulations include guidelines about what should be done, such as preventing theft and reinforcing security personnel training and qualification. Installing filtered containment venting system, also known as FCVS, is also additional solution. This system traps hazardous radioactive species, including cesium-137, and blocks them from spreading beyond the containment building. The U.S. is also willing to offer technical support to nations who have not adopted to it. Within these modifications, the threats caused by the military uses will diminish. Simultaneously, since possessing bomb-most atomic weapons will be permitted, it will forestall clashes between nations. Plus, accidents will be prevented by international sanctions and advanced power plants. Therefore, these two main solutions will bring peace in the use of nuclear energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of USA. You may now be seated. Next, Delegate of Korea, please approach the podium. You may now begin.
This delegate would like to add on to what he said during the opening speech. The delegate of Korea would like to emphasize that after the Inter-Korean Summit on April 27, 2018, the present topic has been brought up in this committee following the joint press conference and agreement to convert the Korean Armistice Agreement into a full peace treaty. We have also seen North Korea's commitment to end their nuclear program and missile tests by dismantling their key test sites and installations. Also, this delegate would like to clarify what he meant by an agreement based on the NPT for the gradual proliferation of nuclear weapons. This agreement is on 2 notions. The first being that the current NPT, as well as other treaties and agreements, are not precise enough. They all have the detail in the document except for the exact date for which disarmament would be accomplished. This creates a big issue, making room for loose ends. The second is the notion that nuclear weapons are vulnerable and unstable in the hands of humanity. There have been dozens of nuclear accidents, such as the 1995 Black Brant incident or the Norwegian rocket crisis. It occurred when a team of Norwegian and US scientists launched a 4-stage rocket over the Russian capital of Moscow. It eventually reached a very high altitude, which made it resemble a US Navy submarine-launched Trident missile. As a result, Russian President Boris Yeltsin was brought within 5 minutes of launching a full retaliatory nuclear strike against the US. This incident, along with others, demonstrates well enough that there is always a risk of the unforeseen that can result in the genocide of billions. The Republic of Korea has a lot to lose from this agreement. Almost 10% of electricity comes from the existing nuclear reactors, and the country is responsible for exports of nuclear technology to the UAE. Given the circumstances, this delegate asks the delegates in this chamber to consider this. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Korea. You may now be seated. Next, Delegate of Germany, please approach the podium. You may begin.
The delegate of Germany wants to imply on organizing a safe common nuclear plant, also reducing the use of nuclear. The world is in a situation where current renewable energy sources are unable to fulfill Earth's consumption, which motivated Germany to assert the administration of a new common nuclear plant for a safer use. However, the risk is such a high cost, even a minor nuclear plant failure can disrupt the world, so nuclear usage must be gradually diminished. To reduce nuclear energy politically, there must be standards such as carbon footprints. The standards on individual countries of nuclear production must be set by international nuclear organizations like IAEA and restrict usage. Through this policy, it is expected that the standards range will be narrowed, eventually discarding nuclear. To use nuclear peacefully, Germany thinks international promises and rules need to be clarified. Constitutions that investigate corporations illegally abandoning radiation and nuclear waste should be made and progress to banning nuclear energy usage, and the worst, abolish corporations leaking harmful radiation. Also, international law restrains nuclear arsenal creation and enhances supervision of the restraint, granting powerful disadvantages on violation. Moreover, by applying progressive building systems that is currently operated in Korea, it is believed the step to achieving nuclear zero is closer. Progressive building system is a way of earning extra taxation when deadlines that are separated are exceeded. If these solutions are introduced to nuclear usage reduction policies, nuclear will be reduced significantly. By providing solutions forcefully decreasing nuclear, it is expected the effect will surface soon. The delegate of Germany recognizes the risk of nuclear energy is rocketing high. From the past, there has been tries to prevent this by adding several rules, but is in a state that this danger will be under control. A small hole borrows a bank, a phrase in the old sayings. If we do not complement this hole, it will threaten the whole world. Presently, we do not have enough power to fulfill the problem, and the only route left for the unplanned road is to simply reduce nuclear. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Germany. You may now be seated. Delegate of Sweden, please approach the podium. may now begin. This delegate would like to clarify the solutions suggested in this delegate's opening speech. The delegate of Sweden insists on reducing the scale of nuclear power. Although our nation is highly dependent on nuclear energy, we accepted that the radiation, contaminated plants, radioactive waste, and the extra risk from nuclear power plants are causing severe social and environmental problems. Because of this, in 2002, European nations have discussed on nuclear power plant policies because cracks in nuclear containment vessels were found by different countries. However, because of incalculable cost and resistance from the industry, the government decided to table the phased closing of nuclear energy policy. Plants are causing severe social. However, because of incalculable cost and resistance from the industry, the government decided to table the phased closing of nuclear power plants in 2009, which it had maintained for 30 years. However, Sweden has long been hungry for waste disposal to serve the dangers of nuclear power plants, particularly environmental pollution. The government supports the activities of SKB, the Nuclear Energy Control Agency in Sweden, by setting standards of activities and permission. The SKB goes through a complicated process to prepare the site to determine the appropriate final treatment. And SKB decided Westhammar as a disposal site through processes of rigorous geological survey, keeping application to local governments. Apart from the SKB, high-level disposal facilities such as Forsmark, which has the only underwater cave disposal facility in the world, outstanding technology resources, and research centers are contributing to safe nuclear dismantlement. Sweden government plans to present various measures and policies to address this issue. The Swedish government is trying to dispose of nuclear waste by dispatching Sweden's technical skills and resources, but holding learning and skills council of nuclear, exchanging information, technical advice, and so on. This is one of the efforts that 12 agencies from 10 countries around the world now sign an MOU to interact with each other. According to such measures, the government will implement by revitalization of MOU and controlling and surveillance survey. Sweden is planning to deliver an address to offer technical advice to other countries for safe nuclear power plants, especially developing countries or from their stand position definitely, to use nuclear plant as power system in their country, with good understanding of nuclear and high level of technology and minimize contamination of environment. As mentioned before, Sweden will reduce power generation and try to develop renewable energy sources. In Sweden, solar power generation has been garnered relatively little attention, though Sweden is depending on renewable energy highly at about 50%. In sum, the government plans to implement more plans to increase the scale of solar power generation for facilitating the goal 100% of new renewable energy policy by 2040. In addition, there will be better measures provide benefits to businesses and houses which use solar power generation, such as giving them subsidies or other helps. Thank you. Thank you, Delegate of Sweden. You may now be seated. Now that the general speakers list has been exhausted, the floor is now open. The delegates are now able to raise points and motions. Delegates can use points to ask questions and state their opinions about procedural matters of the conference, and motions can influence the flow of the debate if deemed necessary. This includes moving into a moderated or unmoderated caucus and introducing a draft resolution. That being said, are there any points or motions? Yes, Delegate of USA.
Motion to move into moderated caucus for the duration of 30 minutes for the purpose of discussing specific aspects of this agenda.
Thank you, Delegate. Your motion has been recognized. You may now be seated. Are there any other points or motions in the committee? Seeing none, the committee will now vote on the motion raised by the Delegate of USA to move into a moderated caucus. This is a procedural vote requiring a simple majority to pass. That being said, delegates wishing to vote for this motion, please raise your placards high. Thank you. And delegates wishing to vote against. Thank you. With over half of the delegates voting for, this motion passes, and the committee will now enter a moderated caucus for 30 minutes. Delegates wishing to speak, please raise your placards high. Yes, Delegate of China.
The delegate of Saudi Arabia has mentioned that the classes of NPT should be made to be more specific. Could the delegate of Saudi Arabia elaborate on what she means by this? Also, Saudi Arabia wants to use nuclear energy. However, because of the lack of technology, Saudi Arabia wants to support the international community with natural resources and agreed on lending fossil fuels to the countries that support for Saudi Arabia's causes. So, please tell the recipient country specifically for how much and how long Saudi Arabia could provide fossil fuels.
Thank you, Delegate. You may be seated. Yes, Delegate of Saudi Arabia, you may begin.
First, Article 4 guarantees the right to use nuclear energy unless the management right to use nuclear-bound weapons or devices is transferred to another countries. These delegates think that it should be added to this treaty that the country who threaten the safety of other countries or provide global hazard by using nuclear weapons can be infringed management right of nuclear weapons or devices. Article 6 also states that negotiation to stop nuclear weapons competition and reduce nuclear armament should be earnestly pursued by countries who have nuclear weapons in the near future. In this provision, these delegates think that it should specify what specific activities will be performed and the period for which it will take to reduce the ambiguity of its treaty. We will provide about 15% of the support countries' imports of fossil fuel, and Saudi Arabia provide them until the use of global nuclear energy exceeds the use of fossil fuel. These delegates acknowledge that Japan and South Korea have led the development of nuclear energy internationally. However, in Japan, it advanced nuclear energy by Fukushima nuclear power plant, but there was also a global crisis because of this. In this respect, wouldn't the delegate of China consider expanding the scope of the nuclear discussion organization as a whole to Asia, not just to Northeast Asia?
Thank you, Delegate. You may now be seated. Yes, Delegate of China, you may begin.
In our speech, this delegate referred to Northeast Asia simply because its power plant density is the highest in the world and had closest geographical distance. Therefore, if other Asian countries want to provide financial assistance to international organizations and promise active participation, the delegates of China are willing to expand their participation to all of Asia. For details, discussion with representatives of South Korea and Japan will be necessary, but China would appreciate it if other countries would know that this delegate proposal to establish an international organization is for the safety of Asia, not for Northeast Asia's own alliance.
Thank you, Delegate. You may be seated. Yes, Delegate of Sweden, you may begin. Delegate of Germany seems to consider nuclear energy as means of supplying the lack of renewable energy. Delegate of Germany is also planning to construct a possessive nuclear power plant in common. In contrast, Sweden shows gradually decreasing tendency of dependence on nuclear energy system and permanently increasing tendency to develop renewable energy. Then, is there any obligation to join with Delegate of Germany's opinion? Thank you, Delegate. You may now be seated. Yes, Delegate of Germany, you may begin.
Delegates of Germany are also encouraging the use of renewable energy by announcing the zero emissions policy. However, what is the reason why nuclear energy continues to be used, despite the fact that renewable energy is developing and the danger of nuclear emerges? The amount of renewable energy produced per hour is very low and the cost is very high. Let's take the energy output of a bicycle generator, which is one of the renewable energy, as an example. When 1,500 watts is produced, the actual power generation which is able to be used is up to 500 watts. In addition, the efficiency of solar energy is also very low. According to the status of EIO research, the rate of energy use is increasing year by year. It will take a lot of effort to reach the point where it is time to supply renewable energy that can fill this consumption. If the organizations establish a nuclear power plant which is operated altogether under high security, the delegates think it will reduce the burden of supplying renewable energy.
Delegates of Sweden said that while building a nuclear waste disposal system to ensure the safety of the nuclear power, also the delegates gradually introduce renewable energy and reduce the use of the nuclear energy. Delegates of Germany has a positive attitude towards the diffusion of the renewable energy while gradually reducing the use of the nuclear energy. However, nuclear waste is not just neglected nowadays. Everyone is doing their best to protect them under high-level surveillance. Delegates of Sweden propose to introduce a nuclear waste disposal system to a developing country. These delegates want to ask, who will be responsible for the economic burden and responsibility, and what standards will you establish to choose the developing country to introduce delegate system?
Thank you, Delegate. You may now be seated. Yes, Delegate of Sweden, you may begin.
Sweden is incomparable in field of nuclear dismantlement. It is demonstrated by world's only underwater cave disposal facility and high-level landfills cited by SKB in Sweden. The government of Sweden will offer technical advice to developing countries that show their stand position to use nuclear energy as power system. This delegate does not want polluted environment by overusing nuclear energy. Accordingly, this delegate will suggest that intends to support outstanding high-quality technology concerning disposal of nuclear waste. This delegate will give application about financial assistance to IAEA, IOU, NEA. Then, countries should contribute to minimize the damage of environmental pollution, and these organizations let other countries limit the standard of using nuclear energy for national security.
Thank you, Delegate. You may now be seated. Yes, Delegate of USA, you may begin.
The delegate of Republic of Korea opined about the elimination of nuclear arsenals around the world. But As this delegate mentioned before, 9 nations are possessing significant amounts of nuclear armaments. In addition, Russia and the United States of America holds a vast amounts of weapons in particular. Contemplating this situation, the USA has reached to a conclusion that worldwide full disarmament at once will be impossible. From the international aspect, the delegates admit that the possession of armaments could be menacing to other nations. But in a domestic point of view, the economic profit from holding nuclear arsenals cannot be ignored. Plus, the possession of nuclear arsenals is influential in retaining a nation's security. Considering the USA's position, the delegate would like to cast doubt whether the disarmament of nuclear arsenals is a practical solution.
Thank you, Delegate. You may now be seated. Yes, Delegate of Korea, you may begin.
Nuclear weapons are judged to have no economic benefits in the long run. They are also no longer effective. Nuclear weapons are simply recognized